Hello everybody, welcome back to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and today we're going to be recapping the second week of North America League, stage number 1 for 2024. And I wanted to mention before we properly get into things that I was co-streaming on Twitch the last day of matches, yesterday, Friday, and I plan to do so for more days, probably Thursday, maybe also Friday. So some untold number of days I should be co-streaming the NAL matches, so definitely swing by. I had a few people in my watch party increasing throughout the night. It was a lot of fun. Maybe we weren't always talking about the siege at hand, but you know, it depends what people are saying in chat, and we can maybe converse. We had a few people in there leaving comments, asking questions, and so I'd love to see you there as well. I'll leave the link for my Twitch in the description, and I'm sure you know when the games start, but if you don't, they start around 5 p.m. Eastern time, so of course, you know, add or subtract however many hours to find your time zone, and I hope to see you there. A lot more games to talk about than last week. We only had 4 last week, and now we have 10 games, I think. So let's get into it. We're just going to go match by match. I'll try to talk about my predictions as we go, and then we'll look at just a few stats in the standings at the end. So yeah, starting with Beast Coast versus Luminosity. I predicted Beast Coast, but I wasn't terribly surprised that Luminosity took this. Beast Coast hadn't played yet. They were very much an unknown quantity, being a brand new roster, again, having not played, and Luminosity a few games under their belt this stage. I guess this was only the second, but they played last stage. Pretty different team, but still. So what actually went down? They played on Clubhouse, 7-4, close-ish game, not a complete blowout, but not terribly close. Hot and Cold the best player on Beast Coast, but no real standout. Only Gaveni going +1 at best, and pretty even on the entry, I guess. Only -1 for Beast Coast. But Wi-Fi, Silent, Hat, all pretty well popping off. A few 1vx's in this game, one for Diffuser and one for Wi-Fi, one for Silent. And I don't know, not a ton to talk about in this game. I think we'll see a little bit more of a clear picture painted for these teams as we see their next games. Next up is Oxygen versus Wildcard, and I wasn't super surprised. Oxygen having a really good stage. They win this game, and they're going to win their next game. And they win them all solidly, but, and I'll probably talk about this again later, Oxygen hasn't really had to face any of the top tier teams just yet. They haven't played, you know, Space Station, Sonics, etc. Even if some of the seeming top teams coming into the stage are having a little bit of a rough go so far in the stage, there's still a lot of time to bounce back, and well, maybe not a lot of time, but a reasonable amount of time. 3 rounds only for Wildcard, so they got 7-4'd by M80, now they get 7-3'd by Oxygen, not looking great, and they actually started out identically. They started on the defensive side, they go up 3-1, and then they let it slip to a 3-3, and then against M80, they lost 3 rounds in a row. Same thing happens here, but against M80, they won 1 round before getting the match finished against them. Here, they just lose a 4th round in a row. And Newer's clutch closes it out, and Newer's really good game, 13-3. Diaz also a good game, following up his 13-4 performance in their previous game, and just a good showing all around for Oxygen. And on Wildcard, nobody doing very well. Kansan going 8-8 is the best they could muster. Kansan went, I think, 9-9. He's been their best player by far this stage, and we'll see why in the next game. I don't think he was quite the top-rated player in the last game. It was probably Bosco or Rampy. I don't remember off the top of my head, but again, in the next game, he goes kind of crazy. So moving on to game number 3, the next game that Wildcard plays, not this next game, of course. M80 versus Sonics. I predicted Sonics here. I did think this could go either way. I've been doing, in the first 2 days, I did pretty bad with the more 50-50 predictions, if I'm being honest. But for the week that we're looking at right now, I did 7 out of 10. So I think overall, I'm at 9 out of 14, which I think is pretty reasonable. I guess we'll see how things continue, but being significantly above 50% feels pretty good. You know, 7 out of 14 would have been 50%. But M80 takes this one, and Sonics, they look pretty bad as individuals for sure. I mean, Adam, he pretty well carried them. 18-10. The only other player with even a respectable scoreline is Merc going 10-9, but we got Rexon, Geo, Ambi especially getting slammed, and dead even on the entry. You'll note Sonics have been pretty solid. I think they actually have the best entry stats of any team. And at the end of things, at the end of the week, they've played more games than anyone else. They've played 4, whereas every other team has played 2 or 3. Maybe everybody's played 3. But they've played 4, but still, I think they're at +8, and the closest teams are at like +7, +6, which is pretty close. Maybe they'll be passed after other teams have played 4 games, but still solid on the entry in general. Again, not in this game where it's even, but You know, going even on the entry and then losing it feels good in the way that you know you're getting the early rounds right and that you just need to improve your conversions from there, right? So Kino, another really good game. He was also their best player, if I remember right, in their first game against Wildcard. Spoit showing up big here. Noodles fine. Cameraman and Citizen not as good. Maybe if they played a little bit better, M80 could have closed this out in regulation because it was Sonics that had to push overtime. So M80 could have won this 7-5. If you know, things have been just a little bit different. But again, Adam really seems like the reason that they were able to get the 1 point on the board, take the 1 point away from M80. Next game is Dark Zero versus Space Station. And we're quickly seeing all of these matches in the Dark Zero Space Station triangle, and we have one more to see. I guess this is the second one, but we will have seen the third one once we're done with the video. That'll be Space Station versus Sonics. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't disappoint. Dark Zero goes to overtime and usually runs it pretty close against SSG. They've had a few results that they won pretty dominantly against SSG fairly recently, but again, usually games from among Dark Zero, Space Station, Sonics are all they're generally all pretty good games, really close games, usually. And yeah, this one, no exception. Space Station was sort of on the back foot early on, but not massively so. I think Dark Zero goes up, yeah, 3-1, but then Space Station brings it to a 3-3 half, and then they sort of trade rounds. Space Station gets the lead, Dark Zero retakes the lead, and then they're at 5-5 again. SSG, Dark Zero go to overtime, but then some great plays by Ashen, and they close it out. And great plays by Ashen throughout the whole game. He's been phenomenal. Definitely the best player this stage so far. The stats definitely reflect that. He's had 3 amazing games. This was probably his best one. Pretty hard to beat, 19-7 generally, and 2-0 in the entry. Good game from Iconic. He was not so good in his other 2 games, the game before this and the next game that we'll see, but at least we see a good game from him here. And sort of the same thing in the last game, where maybe if a few players from Space Station had picked it up a bit, they could have won in regulation, because just like in the M80 Sonics game, the team that was up 6-5, they did end up winning, but not until overtime, right? Space Station were up 6-5, so they could have won 7-5, but Dark Zero pushed overtime, so things could have been a little bit different. Space Station could have had the full 3 points, but no, they close it out and they do get 2. And vindicating my prediction at the very least. Beast Coast versus Oxygen, and is this this is the last game for Playday, technically Playday number 3, but really only the second Playday we saw because the first one had to be postponed. Oxygen take down Beast Coast. Yeah, another 7-3 for Oxygen, and they're looking really solid. But again, maybe haven't faced the top tier competitors just yet. Not a ton to say about this. Spirit's the best team on Oxygen, or on Beast Coast here rather, and I think that's been consistent throughout the stage, and we'll continue to see it. Spirits has definitely been their best player, but I don't think anybody has been awful on Beast Coast, but certainly the team as a whole needs to step it up. Talk about that more when we get to the standings, I suppose. Gomez going crazy here. Yaga also a good game. So we've seen pretty much everybody on Auction have a really good game, except for Dream, I guess, but that's sort of the nature of being the IGL hard support. You generally don't have as many good games, but yeah, Diaz and Newers were the 2 big players in the previous game. Gomez and Yaga here, and Diaz also had a great game in the first game. So yeah, we've seen a good mix of really impressive results coming out from these guys. And in the next game, yeah, Luminosity versus M80. This kicks off Playdate number 4, so this is the 6th game of the week, I suppose. A bit of an upset, I'd say. Both these teams a bit, it's unclear how good they would be coming into the stage, because I suppose M80 retained Spoit and Kino, and Luminosity retained Eddie and Silent. But besides that, 3 new players on Luminosity, 3 new players on M80. But just looking at the lineups, I mean, M80, just way more proven players. Everybody on this team has, at the very least, made a major top 8, and at best, won majors. Cameraman's a major winner, Spoit's a major winner. Then over on Luminosity, none of these players have ever played at a major. Kixro and Wi-Fi, this is their T1 debut. Eddie and Silent and even Hat have only played a few stages, but again, none of them making a major, and I don't think Eddie and Silent really even proven as forces in NA. We've seen good stuff from Hat before, that's the one thing, and he was definitely the difference maker in this game. We play on Skyscraper, first Skyscraper of the stage. At the end of the day, I think we've seen most of the maps. I think we're just waiting on 1 or 2 maps to be played to have seen them all. We'll see a Consulate later in the day for Consulate's debut in NA. And yeah, Hat goes crazy, 16-7. And he wasn't lighting the world on fire early on in the game, but they had a turning point, I guess, once they got on defense, and that's the nature of Skyscraper. Very defender-sided map. Spoit was killing it early on, also on the defense for M80. Cameraman was backing him up throughout the game. Kino and Noodle struggling. First bad game from Kino, but Noodle has definitely been the least impactful player for M80. This stage thus far, in a very interesting parallel between Hat and Spoit. They were sort of fighting for the kills, and Luminosity won that final round. So technically they win by 2 rounds, right? Because they won 7-5. But Hat beating Spoit out by 1 kill, but I guess his KD was actually quite a lot better. 1 more entry kill. But the big thing, Spoit was in a situation, I think it was this round 2. He was playing on the Mira, and he was in a 1v4, I think it was a 1v3 probably. And he gets 1 kill, brings it to a 1v2, but then he dies, so he would have had to ace clutch. He would have had to get a 1v3 and an ace in the round for M80 to win this out. He fails to do so, but then in round number 8, we see Hat in a pretty much identical situation. His is a 1v4, again, Spoit's might have been a 1v3, but Hat is in the clutch. He has to get all the kills in the round because he already got the 1 kill. So yeah, he needs a 1v4 and he needs to get an ace in the round for them to win. He pulls it off. It's very close, but he does it on the same operator. And that's the difference maker. I mean, I'm not going to say Hat a much better player than Spoit, but in this map, he did outshine Spoit enough for Luminosity to take the game. This was a crazy play, and we actually see 3 aces in coming up today. So we see 1 here, and then we're going to see two more throughout the day. So crazy stuff. I mean, I think it's pretty rare to see 3 aces and only 5 best of 1s. And yeah, again, Kickthrow, a bit of backup for Hat, but nobody else looking great on Luminosity. I don't know, who would you think won this game based off the stats? Because obviously Hat high, but I think Luminosity also has a few lower lows. I don't know. I guess this is impressive enough that maybe you'd assume that they won, but yeah, close game either way. I mean, 7-5, it's not like it was a blowout, but certainly the clutches got it done, because we see the one big massive clutch from Hat coming out, but Wi-Fi closed out. It was only, I think, was it a 1v1 or a 1v2? A 1v2 in the final round for Wi-Fi to secure them the full 3 points. And I don't think a gargantuan upset by any means, but I do think a reasonable size upset for Luminosity beating M80 here. Moving on, game number 7, second game of this play. We see finally that third game in the triangle finally is pushing it, because it's pretty early on to see all 3 of these matchups. Usually one of them is towards the end of the stage, and it's pretty impactful, but Sonics losing to Space Station, and it looked like Sonics were going to win this early on. Here's that consulate game I was talking about. Space Station only get a 3-3 half, and I guess this ends up being a fairly even map for attackers and defenders, but generally consulate is very defender-sided. We've seen it in Europe, and even before this stage we've seen it. Generally a pretty defender-sided map. Defender-sided meta in general, but this is probably one of, again, the more defender-sided maps. Maybe as it gets figured out a little bit more, that'll change, but only a 3-3 half seems disappointing, and then we switch sides, and Space Station does get the first round, but then Sonics, so Sonics are now up 5-4, and Space Station 3 rounds in a row. They close it out. Impressive stuff. This very last round felt like a choke by Rexon. He was in a 1v2. He was looking at the piano hatch. Both the SSG players were above the hatch. One of them drops, he kills him, and then he turns around, tries to go back through a rotate, gets stuck on the rotate because it's sort of poorly made, and then he turns back around, but as the other player drops hatch, but he loses the gunfight. If he just kept looking at the hatch, he would have won. So I don't know if the rotate's to blame. I don't know if Rexon was just shaking and he turned around for no reason. I don't know if he had bad intel, but whatever the case, it looked really bad. Probably if he just, if he kept looking at the hatch, he probably would have gotten the second kill, would have gone overtime. Who knows who would have won, but SSG closed it out regardless of what happened. Ambi, really good performance from him. We'll also see another upcoming game from him be really good. Ashen, just yet another great game. Not as good as against Dark Zero, but 12 and 8 is obviously still impressive. But you'll notice here, SSG were way worse on entry. They went 3 and 9, so they only won 25% of the entry engagements, but yet they won 7 out of the 12 rounds. So Sonics, they were getting that early lead, but they just weren't very good at converting it. 4-0 on entry for Geo, 3-0 for Merc, and I guess Adam really was the standout bad player on the team, which is unfortunate because he had a really good game previously where he was by far the best player, and now by far the worst player in the lobby in this matchup. I imagine he'll bounce back, but that's got to sting a little bit, I would think. And yeah, we'll move on. and we're going to Dark Zero versus Los. This one was a bit of a mess. I think most people expected Dark Zero to take this pretty handily. I think I predicted it to be like a 7-3 or 7-4 or something. And Los probably should have won this. Canadian clutch kept Dark Zero in the game and allowed them to win it in overtime. But Los, I don't know. I'm not massively surprised. I definitely had them very low on my power rankings. And if you don't count the team that is now disqualified from the league, then I had them the lowest in my power rankings. And I mean, Dark Zero hadn't been doing too well at this stage coming into this game, and Los also were winless. Los was 0-1, Dark Zero was 0-2. Dark Zero at least had a close game versus SSG. Los only had a not super close game against Oxygen, but again, they only lost the one game. It's hard to say that they're terrible after just losing one. And they almost beat Dark Zero here. So looking at the rounds, Los goes up 3 rounds in a row, then Dark Zero calls a timeout, and then they win the next 2 rounds flawlessly. And Los finally gets a round, and then we trade rounds a little bit back and forth. But finally, where is it? The Canadian gets a 1v2 clutch, I think. I guess it's way back here. So it's not like the final round that pushed overtime, but because it does go to overtime, had Dark Zero lost this round, and it says they tie, but because Canadian was on the defense and the bomb wasn't planted, this was a round win for Dark Zero. I don't think I've ever seen that on CGG. That's interesting that they don't realize that it's a round win for the defenders. But anyways, yeah, so if Canadian had lost this 1v1, and it was a trade, so had it just gone slightly more in favor of the final Los player, which I want to say was Rise, then had all the other rounds remained the same, Los would have won this 7-5. So that was pretty massive, and it was, I think, Rise trying to plant in Arsenal Sexy Cake above the hatch covering, and then Canadian gets a nice shot on Sexy Cake. He retreats into dirt, and then Rise pushes them, and then they trade on kills, both of them with shotguns out. I think maybe the Ida versus the M590. But anyways, Nafe with a fantastic game. He's been very good for Dark Zero, and Dark Zero was generally pretty good at SI, making top 6, but they've definitely been shaky so far through NA. They're going to need to improve. They're definitely one of the worst teams in the standings at the moment. I guess nobody with an awful game from Dark Zero. NJR does go 9-10, but he's still yet to go positive in a game. Brutal stage for this guy, who's generally one of the best players in the league. And over on Low, Sexy Cake having a phenomenal game. 14-11 doesn't really illustrate it properly, because he did fall off a little bit towards the end, but he was going crazy early on. He was like +7, +8 or something at his peak, but then again they did fall off a little bit. But yeah, 14-11, 4-2, obviously very solid. Massive bounce back from his, I think he went like 1-9 against Oxygen. Legacy, his main backup, also doing really well in this game. Furious, the main struggling player on Los. And yeah, Dark Zero just barely squeaked this out. They go to overtime, as Dark Zero often does, and this time they win it, as opposed to the loss against Space Station. So they got the 1 point versus SSG, and they got 2 points in this game. Moving on, we have Beast Coast versus Wildcard. First round 15 game of the stage so far. I called this game a coin flip, and I mean, it certainly was a coin flip. It was just back and forth. It goes overtime, and then it goes max overtime, and Wildcard just barely pull it out. Wildcard with an incredible choke in round number 12. They were up 5v2, and then they get 2v5 clutched on, and then it goes from a 5v2 to a 1v2. Kansan gets he plants the bomb, gets 1 kill, and then just barely doesn't get the other kill. And Kansan was the story of this game, because dude dropped 24 kills, and he was dead even. He went 9-9 in the first game, I think 8-8 in the second game, and then 24-10. So he's plus 14 overall. I think he's now the second highest rated player in the league off the back of this massive performance. We see Spirits being the best player on Beast Coast, continuing to do so. I think he was the best player in the last game. I think Hot and Cold was the best player in their first game, but definitely separating himself from the pack. 2-0 on entry, +4 on KD, 1 KPR. Good stuff from him. We saw him getting a little bit cheeky, going for some visual boss G spawn kills, which was really fun to watch. I was in his stream, and I asked him if he would be doing that in his pro games, and he said he would, and well, he did. So yeah, Bosco also having a good game here, backing up Kansan a little bit, but Rampy really struggling. And yeah, I mean, Rampy and I guess Spiker, you have to imagine if they played a little bit better, if Kansan just had a little bit more backup. Wildcard, well, certainly they could have won in regulation, because again, you choke you chug a 5v2, like you obviously messed up. Just so terrible stuff from them in that round, but finally they get on the board. Beast Coast is now 0-3. I guess they do have 1 point on the board. Wildcard 1-2, but only 2 points on the board. And Wildcard was actually way better on entry. Look at this. They won 10 of the 15 rounds on entry, so really good conversion rate for them, I suppose. Well, they're not really good. I don't know. They won 8 of the 15 rounds. They won 10 of the 15 entry engagements. So I don't know, maybe you wouldn't call that a great conversion rate, whatever. They won a lot of entries and they managed to win the game in the end. They need to pick up their consistency. It seems like Kansan is maybe returning to form. I said this about Kansan. They need him to be doing well, and it took him 24 kills for them to win in round 15. So hopefully he doesn't need to put up these kind of numbers every game. Maybe he'll get a little bit more backup, and I do hope to see it. And finally, we have Los versus Sonic. So Los' second game of the day, Sonic's second game of the day, and it's another close one. Los, they don't get any points on the board here, unfortunately, like they did against Dark Zero. They're 0-3, but they've run it close against both Dark Zero and Sonics now. And yeah, I mean, it couldn't have been too much closer. Obviously, it could have gone overtime, but they trade back and forth pretty well. Well, okay, maybe not so much trading back and forth round to round, because Sonics do go up 4-1, and then Los gets around, Sonics gets around. Los have to make a bit of a comeback. They have to win 3 in a row to tie it up, but they do tie it up 5-5. And then 1 for Sonics and another for Sonics. So yeah, they get the full 3 points, which I don't know if they desperately needed, but it's definitely nice to get these after missing out on all of your points against SSG. And Farias actually the top rated player here, but nobody doing too badly on Los, and Ambi with a massive pop-off game. Ambi and Merc, the two star players, I think, in 2 of the games. Adam had his 1 really good game, but Ambi and Merc have also had 2, if not 3 good games. I guess Ambi had 1 really bad game. Merc maybe had 1 kind of bad game. Yeah, so I think 2 good games for Ambi, 2 good games for Merc, and then 1 spectacular game for Adam. And actually, he was, 18-10, so Ambi even outshining that performance here. Good stuff, and I guess Sonic's not fantastic on the entry here either. They go dead even like they did in a previous game, so maybe it was just against SSG they got most of their entry advantage. So what I was saying earlier about them being overall really good on entry, maybe that's not strictly true, because again, it seemed like they got a lot of those engagements in just the SSG game. So yeah, I guess we'll move on. Let's just look at some stats really quickly, just highlight a few players, and then we'll look at the standings. We'll call it a day. Ashen, yeah, the best player in the league. Kansan on his tail, but Kansan had 2 mediocre games and 1 incredible game, so we'll see if he can keep up this performance. It seems like Ashen probably won't keep up, because, I mean, 1.44 is extremely hard to maintain. He had, I think, a 1.51 before the last game, so even though he had another good game, it still wasn't good enough to keep up with the lofty standards he'd set. He is one of only 2 players to have 2 1vx's along with Wi-Fi. We see... What else do we see? Let me look at the leaderboards, actually. Yeah. The ratings, we obviously sorted by, but KD, Ashen leading the pack massively. We see a lot of auction players on here, unsurprising considering they won 7-4, 7-3, 7-3. But we see 2 Sonics players topping entry right next to each other, and these aren't even the entry players on Sonic, so that's interesting. And then Spoit leading in cost, clutches we looked at. Rexon, the plantingest player. Geo, I think, has no plants, so the role changes are really coming into effect there. Rexon playing a lot of hard breach and planting the bomb quite a lot. Again, Sonics with, I think, more games than any other team, so maybe Kino or Bursa or somebody will catch up in the plants. And let me sort by teams really quickly and see if we notice anything. Yeah, Hat, the massive standout on Luminosity. Sonics, they were really closely rated before their last game, or maybe it was before their last 2 games. I don't remember, but now Ambi and Merc have really broken away from the pack. Spirits, again, leading the way for Beast Coast quite heavily. Legacy, actually the best player on Los, despite Sexy Cake having 1 phenomenal game. He had 1 a really bad game that brought him down pretty low. And then Spoit and Kino, the 2 stars for M80, but I guess even Cameraman's doing fine. Citizen and Noodle, the two of the European players on the squad, I should say, because Spoit's also European, even if he's now played longer for M80 than he did for Rogue and Koi combined. Yeah, maybe these guys will pick it up a little bit, but I guess Citizen's still +1. Noodle, I think you just want a little bit more from him. I imagine he's still pretty impactful in the calls and whatnot. Newers and Diaz looking spectacular. Gomez and Yaga also good. Again, Dream, at the back. -8, -4 isn't amazing, but they won all 3 games decisively, so you can't complain too much. On Dark Zero, Nath and Bolo, the 2 newest players, are the real standouts. And then for Wildcard, yeah, Kansan incredible. Bosco looking really good though. +3, +3, 3 plants, 1 VX. This is what I wanted to see from Bosco. I really did not want to see him come back and be washed, but no, he's the second best player clearly on the team at the moment. And then finally, SSG, Ashen way above, but Fultz and J9O also doing pretty well for themselves. Iconic had 1 good game, but I'd like to see a little bit more from him. He's not had a spectacular debut on SSG as an individual, but I suppose they've gotten 8 of the 9 possible points. They're 3-0. You can't complain too much. And yeah, map stats, I guess we've seen everything except for Nighthaven Labs, Cafe, Consulate, Skyscraper, Chalet, Border. All these maps only played once. Bank, Oregon, Clubhouse with repeat plays. And every map is even or defender sided except for Consulate, interestingly. And Border, only 1 play, but the primary bomb site Archives Armory, not 1 at all. And on Cafe, no plays of the top floor, and Reading Dining played 5 times, 0 wins, also only 1 play. So, you know, it makes sense for there to be some anomalies in that way, but still, I think interesting to point out. And finally, let's go look at the standings. So yeah, Oxygen stands tall at the top. I'll say it again though, they've played, I won't say like bad teams, because it seems like at the moment in NA, all the teams are relatively close. We don't have any teams that are obviously the worst, like Beast Coast and Xset back in the day were just obviously terrible. It seems like maybe there are some teams that are better than the other ones, but all the games are fairly competitive, because I don't even think we've seen any 7-0, 7-1s. We've seen like 1 7-2. It's been pretty competitive, especially this last day. All the games went at least 12 rounds. I think we saw, what, 3 7-5s and 8-6 and 8-7. So really long day in the last day. Back to the teams. Space Station looking pretty good, and they have played tougher teams. They played Sonics, they played Dark Zero. Looking good for them. Obviously, these are the top 2 teams at the moment. Sonics, they do have 7 points, but again, keep in mind, every other team has only played 3 games, whereas they've already played 4. So 7 points, but a little bit of an asterisk there. Luminosity looking pretty good, 2-1, beating M80, but then they beat Beast Coast, so Beast Coast worst team in the league at the moment, and maybe it's not the most impressive win, but again, the M80 one's good. M80 on their tail, only 1 point behind them, but they have the head-to-head, so maybe that'll become relevant later. And then we have, I guess the bottom 4 teams are all pretty close. Dark Zero really struggling. I had them as, I think, the 2nd highest team in my sort of power rankings, and they're not living up to that so far, but I guess they did have a few tough matches, so They certainly have the ability to pick it up. Let's see if they can do it in time. They're not in like massive danger of not making top 6. They're in the 6th place position, but there's enough games still left to be played that they could hop their way up a bit. Then we have Wildcard, Los, and Beast Coast, and I think these are some of the teams that for sure people thought would be lower in the rankings, but I mean, just even 1 regulation win for Beast Coast and the other guys don't get any more points. You know, they leapfrog over Los and Wildcard and Dark Zero. They can go all the way to 6th place. Same thing for Los, and obviously same thing for Wildcard, having more points on the board. Los and Beast Coast, the only two teams that are winless at the moment, and at least they have 1 point to show for their efforts, but certainly they need to pick it up if they want to make it out. Every team is only, I guess, everyone's played 3 except for Sonics that played 4, and everyone is going to play 8. So, because they have 8 opponents to play against. So Beast Coast and Los, 5 more games to go. I guess they have 15 points available to them. They could certainly get out of the bottom 3, but we'll see what happens. And do let me know what you think is going to happen. Like, did you think Beast Coast were terrible and will continue to be terrible? Do you think they're going to pick it up? Were you impressed with Los's performances? They definitely were better in the last 2 games than they were in that first game. Wildcard, even they were kind of shaky. They barely got the win, but at least they got a win, etc., etc. Obviously some of these teams up here you say would look more impressive. I think the team that's overperforming based on my predictions is definitely Luminosity. I had them at like 8th place or something, and now they're here in 4th. Will they hang on to that? They're only +1 in round differential. The heroics of Hat is pretty much the sole reason they're up here instead of like down here. But yeah, do let me know what you think. I think that's gonna finish up for me. I guess we're almost at 30 minutes, but it is what it is. We got a lot of games to talk about now. These videos are going to tend to be a little bit longer, but I assume some people enjoy the longer videos. Anyways, leave me a like, a comment, a subscription, all that good stuff, and I will catch you guys next time.